Mike's on Mike, a conversation about politics, government, and Jacksonville, with 50-year opinion leaders Mike Hightower, Mike Tolbert, and award-winning broadcaster and longtime political observer, Mike Miller.
Welcome to the 85th episode of Mike's on Mike. I'm Mike Miller, along with Mike Hightower and Mike Tolbert. Nice to have you with us, and thanks for joining us. People often ask why the Jacksonville History Center is our podcast partner. So I want to read what JHS said in its most recent newsletter. Quote, "The Jacksonville History Center is proud to serve as the host and sponsor of Mike's on Mike, a podcast that sparks engaging conversations while actively contributing to Jacksonville's historical record. Working in tandem with our oral history project, Mike's on Mike helps preserve the voices, stories, and experiences of today, ensuring they become part of our city's narrative for future generations. Public history isn't just about documenting the past. It's about deepening our understanding of the present and shaping our future. By partnering with Mike's on Mike, we're capturing the moments and conversations that define Jacksonville, ensuring that our citizens feel connected to Jacksonville's past and feel invested in the future. As always, we are grateful to Alan Bliss and the staff of the Jacksonville History Center for their partnership, and to the many donors who keep the cameras running and the lights on. Today, the three of us are going to be covering some topics of interest, like the squabble between Mayor Deegan and Councilman Ron Salem about the Deegan DIA proposal to swap downtown riverfront land for the building of the University of Florida. Mike Tolbert, get us started. What's going on between the mayor and Salem? This time.
Well, yeah, this time. It should be obvious to all of us by now that with Salem's misguided ambition to run for mayor in 2027 against Mayor Deegan, that anytime he thinks he's got a political shot to take, he's going to take it, whether it's good politics or not. And this is one of those occasions, I think. Not too long ago, despite the city charter calling for a strong mayor type of government, Salem has been complaining that Mayor Deegan is overstepping her own bounds. She's been too strong, and he thinks the council ought to have more say-so in what administrative issues going on. It's kind of nuts. And at a meeting of the Downtown Investment Authority recently, Chief of Staff Mike Weinstein was there, in part talking about this building swap. And I want to read you something he said. He said, we have frustrated legislators, council members that want to negotiate and do what the mayor's job is. And I think that's a big part of this problem. But let's talk about the issue of the building right now. To set the table, the University of Florida decided in December, this past December, that it was going to build a much sought after graduate school in downtown Jacksonville near where the convention center is. Mayor Deegan and the DIA are trying to work a land swap that would give the city, Mayor Deegan, the city, a building on Bay Street, the Interline building, in exchange for an acre of land on the riverfront that would be given to Gateway Jacks that owns that building. If the city gets that building with that swap, then the city will in turn give that building to the University of Florida so that it can start its classes in August, really right away. Well, Salem's trying to throw a monkey wrench into that. He says it shouldn't be land swap. It should be paid out of cash. It should be paid. He's come up with a price of $4 million, and I don't know anybody who knows where that $4 million figure came from or if it has any validity at all. And he says it should be paid out of city reserves. Well, that's kind of ironic, and he's taken such a hard stand that city reserves should not be used, I guess, unless it's something that he wants to do with it. Maybe that makes it okay. And he keeps saying he's a fiscal conservative, but he wants to take $4 million and spend on this land instead of doing a land swap that wouldn't cost the city anything and would accomplish exactly what needs to be done. I might add that 1 acre of land swap is pretended to be the site of where a proposed big building, I think 16-story building, will be built downtown on the river at Riverfront Park, whatever it's called out, Riverfront Plaza. I mean, it's just nuts, and it's a continuation of the crap that we see coming out of city council an awful lot.
I think we're going to, obviously this is not the first salvo, but it's going to be one of many that are going to be coming up here starting this year, I guess, as the election gets closer. And we're going to hear it not just from Salem, who, as you point out correctly, has already indicated his desire to want to run for mayor, but I think we're going to hear it out of Rory Diamond. We're going to be hearing it out of a lot of the the more vocal opponents to the mayor as we do get closer to it. But I don't understand the logic of why it would be better to buy than swap. Barter is always I shouldn't say always, but generally is the preferred method so that no one's reaching in their pocket for anything.
Yeah, when you go into negotiations, the first thing to say is, can we get this done for less? And so it seems like we're coming in, ass backwards, for lack of a better expression. Mike Tolbert set the table correctly. This is not going to be the first salvo that we're going to hear from Ron Salem. The closer we get to 2027, or I guess midterm 2026, when people go out and start raising money. But, beside Mr. Salem, we've heard Ron, Rory Diamond. We also heard Jerry Holland's interested. And we heard that Representative
Wyman Dunn? Is Wyman still in?
The representative from over in Avondale. Why am I drawing the blank?
Is that Wyman Duggan?
Wyman. So you got 4. So maybe what he's just trying to do is, find a niche, find something that separates him from the other part. But I really like the idea that Mike raised this part is, when you go back and look at the things that we have been struggling with from the first time the mayor proposed when she got here, when it was talking about reserves, he always said it was like the third rail. Don't touch it. But in this case, what's the first third rail that he touches? $4 million, because he wants to be in the middle of it. This is nothing but trying to, move from the legislative branch into the executive branch. And I think, candidly, people are tired of this type of foolishness. He
wants to negotiate contract. He wants the council to negotiate contracts with folks. And can you imagine how would you do that with 19 members in Sunshine Law? How in the hell would you negotiate a contract with a developer? That's what the DIA is there for. That's what the administration is there for. And the council is a legislative body that ought to approve or deny.
Well, being a former lobbyist and being a little bit cynical, I guess if you want to bring that part in there so that there's a debate and you have to negotiate and you're running for office, maybe there's a quid pro quo. I don't know, but I guess I'm being very cynical on this. But it's a matter of, stay in your sandbox, look at the charter as Mike Tolbert has said, look at what the duties and the power of the legislative branch, the executive branch is, and stay in your lane.
Yep.
Real simple.
And, the bottom line is that this deal is going to go to city council for their approval or denial anyhow. So let it play out and see what happens. If the council overwhelmingly or even by a slim margin decides that they don't want this deal, they'll vote it down and they'll go back to the negotiating table.
Yeah, but also there's a third part. Why do ever since this program has started, we've been talking and we've had Lori Boyer on there. What is the role of the DIA? So not only is he trying to step into the mayor's powers, but he's trying to upstage the DIA. So
I think we're getting close to needing Lori to come back on the
DIA
show.
approved this swap.
Exactly.
The
so
DIA
that was their recommendation.
They approved this swap.
Yep. Well, we need to get Lori Boyer back on the program, guys, so we can get an update on all of this kind of stuff. There's a lot going on downtown that we need to talk about. Well, Mike Hightower, last year, Mayor Deegan and council agreed to give police officers and firefighters significant and very well-deserved raises, but recently, our friend Nate Monroe, the new executive editor of the Jacksonville Tributary, reported that the city owes the pension fund $3 billion. That means this year's payment from the general fund will be a record of $201 million. What's going on with that?
Well, let's first talk about the 210 million, then we'll talk about the $3 billion. That 201 it's for parks, libraries, public safety. And until recently, until we talked about it, it was about the garbage fee. Thank goodness we had 12 city council folks that did the right thing, stepped up, and took that off the table. Kudos to them. Also, when you kind of think about people who didn't do the right thing, who was leading the pack of just say no? Ron Salem. But that's a separate issue. The pay raises that the mayor talked about, they were overdue. There's no question about that. The $3 billion in debt is there. It's got to be addressed. And if y'all remember, was it 2 weeks ago, we had Mayor Payton who kind of gave us I thought an outstanding, civics lesson on, the financial, where we are with the city. And the one thing that came across very clearly, that when you look at where we need to go to the next generation, we're doing, if you remember what he said, and he did it very artfully and very accurately with his charts, was that the city wants it both ways. They want to move to the next tier, but they want to do it on the cheap. And, we're always doing it on the cheap. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to eventually, to address the $3 billion and become a big tier city, we're going to have to start having city council folks. They're going to step up, have the political courage to do the right thing, and not run as, looking for a niche to run, fiscal conservative, call it what you want. The legacy should be, in my way, it should be a legacy of leadership. It should not be a legacy of, I just said no. And that's how we're going to address not only this debt, but when we're looking at what we want to do to move the city, because we've already talked about the jail coming up. We're talking about the stadium, which we have a marriage there for another 30 years, and we need to do that. We've got the waterfront that we're talking about of bringing folks now. And as the mayor talked about, we've got over 100 folks a year, families, all that are coming into the city. So to me, it's really about, we got to address the debt. When we go back and think, why do we have this huge debt? We go back to the former administration, his pension reform. From my perspective, that was nothing but another way of just kicking the can down the road. It was smoke and mirrors, and we're still addressed with it. We still got the debt, and it's going to take political courage to do the right thing by a group of people. And I think that's where we've got to go on this.
The Better Jacksonville plan did have a sunset on it, I believe, didn't it? 2031, Mike Tolbert, is that correct? That was my memory.
I think that's correct. And Curry's reform plan said that when that sunset, the half penny would stay there and it would go to the pension debt. Interesting enough, I spoke with Mayor Payton about this issue this past week. And he reminded me that when he was sworn in as mayor in 2003, that the city's obligation was $30 million to the pension fund, not $201 million. So a lot of difference.
All right. Speaking of the Jacksonville tributary, by the way, shortly after we began podcasting Mike's on Mike, our guest was its former editor, Andrew Pantazzi. We discussed the horrible health conditions at the Duval County Jail that included a number of deaths. Tributary was all over that story, as was, by the way, one of the television stations, to give them credit as well. But because of the horrible conditions, a national accrediting agency put the jail on probation back in 2023. Sheriff changed healthcare providers from Armor to NAFCare, who is our current health provider. The Tributary reported that the changed jail deaths increased by 50%. Now, the accrediting agency has lifted the jail's probation, apparently. NAFCare increased their medical staff at the jail by 14 full-time employees, including physicians, a healthcare services administrator, RNs, and a mental health director. Tributary reported that the booking area is now staffed at all hours by the medical profession, who can give immediate attention to anybody entering the jail who needs it. The purpose of me sharing all of this with you is to stress once again the need and the value of good local journalism. And our thanks go out to Andrew Pantazzi, the staff of the Tributary at the time and to others who are staying on this story. Most likely, if the Tributary had not been the dog on the bone, people would still be dying much more often than they are at the Duval County Jail. So great job to Nate. Great job to the Tributary. And we know Nate's going to be doing just as well in his new position as executive editor.
I was just going to say, this is encouraging to me as a former journalist and somebody who believes in the need for good local journalism. Because as we watch the Times-Union diminish, unfortunately, it looks like in its place of growing these independent nonprofit outlets like the Tributary are growing up and becoming stronger and really getting their hands on stuff. So maybe it's, old guys like us still like to hold on to that newspaper, but it's a changing world, and I'm hopeful, and I'm really beginning to start believing that places like the Tributary are really going to be valuable in the future to this city and to other cities.
Well, and I'll echo that as far as what we're doing, guys, just to pat ourselves on the back for a minute. Podcasts are becoming much more important in the media scene than they've ever been before. There's a lot of junk out there, we all know, but there's a lot of really good stuff too, including our program, if you don't mind us bringing it in. But there are some very good and interesting and important podcasts that are going on, which I know is having a detrimental effect on the traditional broadcast media, and you're seeing it. You're seeing it also in newspapers because of, as you point out, Mike Tolbert, all of the other types of alternative media that's going on. Somebody was decrying to me the other day because they had picked up a Sunday copy of the Florida Times-Union, and they said whereas they could hardly pick it up before, today it's only a few pages, and most of it's from out of town anyhow. So it's this evolution is not going to go back, and we and our public are going to have to learn to adapt to it, that they're going to be reading most of their news, to be honest with you, on this thing.
Exactly. If I can share with a minute, Mike Miller, I shared, we happened to be when Nate, they had reception for Nate when he was welcomed in as the new public editor. And if you remember, the gentleman there was who was talking about the role of the Tributary and the role the importance that it played. The word that he used about, and if I remember correctly, I counted one time, there were 9 times he used the word transparency. And that's what I walked away with. And I really think that goes back to, as you set this topic up about what Andrew did, it was about the transparency of the issue. And as Mike Tolbert just said, we're not getting any of the local news unfortunately, through the Times-Union. So it's going to have to be places like the Tributary, or as you said, where we've got to be able to go back.
We're not getting as much. We're getting as much as the great David Berline can produce.
Yes, but he's one human being. Person. Yeah.
One human being. Yeah, he doesn't have the resources and the help he needs, but he does an unbelievable job.
Absolutely. The other thing that I think that if I can just bridge back to our last week, our guest with Dennis from the Civic Council, when they were talking about the things that they're going to address in their 90-day sprints. That's another way that you take that new approach, plus what Nate's going to be doing with the Tributary, what David is attempting to do through the Times-Union. I think that word, transparency and those kind of issues, that's where we can all help push that out. So that's going to be important if in fact we're going to move the city forward.
Yeah, very true. All right, guys, let's call some quick hits to finish the podcast up this afternoon. Rather, I'm going to mention a topic, and each of you please give us your thoughts on it. First one, which I think is very interesting. This is going to be fun. Trump is backing Congressman Byron Donalds, while DeSantis promotes his wife and former Jacksonville TV news reporter Casey Black DeSantis. How's that going to play out, guys?
Go ahead, Mr. Talbert.
Oh, you should go first, Mr. Hightower.
Oh, okay. Well,
this is your party, buddy.
First and foremost, let me just bring something. Before the show, about 11:15, I watched DeSantis gave the opening. As all governors do, was the opening of the legislature, and in that he brought up his wife doing 2 or 3 initiatives. I just thought that was interesting. I thought that was very thoughtful and very supportive that he would do that for his wife. You know, my sense is that when we get to the year 2026, by then, Mr. DeSantis will be a lame duck, but I think by 2026, as Dr. Mike Bender said, Florida is very red and Florida is very Trump. And my sense is that having Congressman Donalds having his endorsement, I think will go a long way. That's my take.
You know, could I play devil's advocate for a minute?
Sure.
And I don't want us to get talking into politics, but Trump's had a really good, busy 6 weeks so far. I guess it's 6 weeks. But I think there's an opportunity for Trump to unravel before the governor's race comes up in 2026. So I think it's still up in the air. I know Donalds would not win a beauty contest with her, so I guess that's not how it's going to get decided.
Well, I'll tell you, and I put something up on my Facebook page. Sorry, I don't want to plug it or anything, but I put a warning up there based on what I've been hearing, and that is you may want to go ahead and fill up your cars and trucks now and buy all of the avocados you can find in the store, as well as strawberries and other things, because once the tariffs go into play and once the immigration program of the president's really starts taking effect, we're going to see those higher prices. And I think one of the problems that all of the Republican politicians and those that are supporting the president are going to have as they go forward, including, by the way, the Republican Party in Florida, is I thought you guys were promising that you were going to get prices lower. And what we're going to be seeing from every economist I've heard, and not all Democrats, by the way, is that we're going to see prices actually go up. They said gas is going to be going up until Easter, and then we may see a little bit of a drop after Easter. That's after April, of course. But I don't know. I know that Mike Bender said we're a real red state and a Trump state, but I think we may end up being a little more purple if things don't get better than the way they seem to be going right now.
Mr. Miller, I so appreciate what you did. I just have to say, for 4 years, the D's never talked about the price of anything.
You're right.
Now the president's been there 5.5 weeks, and now we're talking about prices high.
Speaking about both the R's and the D's having problems, I think it's interesting that John Morgan is apparently thinking about running for governor as a third-party candidate. What do you guys think about that?
Is that the weed party?
That's the Whig party? It could be.
Weed.
Oh, the weed party? THC for everyone.
Well, John's got pretty good name recognition, and and we've got every time I look at a poll, the majority of the people that are polled claim to be independents, not Republicans and not Democrats. There's a big body of people out there, but the problem also is, it seems to me that historically nobody can pull that together. There hadn't been anybody. It was tried for 2 years, 3 years before the last presidential campaign to try to get an independent voice, an independent candidate. It just people don't want to go there. I think. I'm not sure.
George Wallace tried. George Wallace tried to do it. Ross Perot tried to do it. They all tried to do it, but no one got any traction at all.
Yeah, and I'm not, and I have a lot of respect for John Morgan on a lot of fronts, but I don't think he has the wherewithal to rally people to make this happen. I really don't.
I think he's going. I thought he was going to run as a candidate in the Democratic Party, to be honest with you, and I think he might have a better chance at that.
He was pretty disgusted with what happened in November. You can share that out.
Yeah, he was.
Mike Tolbert's right. I mean, when you go back. Yeah, you go back to the early Strom Thurmonds back when they were trying to do it. I mean, people talk about it, but the independent party just doesn't get there.
No,
it's not there.
It does not. It does not. Okay, this next one here, Mr. Hightower, is for you. The legislative session. What's going to happen this term, buddy?
Well, I'll just pick up on what I heard in the governor. One of the things that talks about, I know I'd been gone a while, but I didn't realize how long I had been gone, that this year's budget is $115.6 $115.6 billion, the state budget. I mean, I can remember when it was 75, and I mean, just unbelievable. Now, to having said that, what I heard today, that the budget, believe it or not, is 1.57 less than last year's, which was interesting, even though with all the things the governor is proposing. It was interesting that the surplus is now 3 times what it has to be. What I heard him talk a lot about, which is going to be interesting, were these tax days, where they give for school for going back. He wants to do it though for boating, recreation, some of those things. One of the things that, getting away from the politics, we've got to say that, we are blessed to have one of these states where they've done good public policy. It's been Democrat and Republican. Then that is, you got to have a balanced budget. And so we do have great for reserves. And, when, according to what I heard today, we are number 1 on so many different categories. We still got a lot of progress, but, then after I heard all the good things that he wants to do, the, new speaker is from Miami. And one of the things that he is addressing that Mike Miller, you and I talked about, is property insurance in South Florida with these condos. And he wants to know really what's going on with the property insurance. So, it'll be interesting to me. It'll be interesting to see the change of 3 years ago or 2 years ago when the legislature basically just rubber snapped everything DeSantis wanted. And now what you've got is what they're going to be doing for the next 2 years with this governor who is now lame duck. So it'll be interesting to see where we go.
Mike Hightower, I worry about 2 or 3 different things with this legislature. One is a further diminishment for home rule, taking the ability of local governments to rule themselves and make their own decisions. And I'm not sure I don't know much about this, but I'm hearing that they're going after the property tax. Cities are going to have to find a way to reduce their property tax, which is so crucial to operating cities. They've done that before. Charlie Crist did it when he was governor. He rolled back property taxes. I worry about ballot initiatives. It looks like this legislature is determined to make it much more difficult for people to vote on ballot initiatives like the abortion amendment,
right,
like the marijuana and so many others. They're trying to restrict that, and then I worry about working people. We're beginning to chip away and fragment services that people who work and who need help are not going to be getting. And I think that scares me with this legislature. It's not just this legislature. It's something that we see everywhere. But I hope we get through this thing. The least of my concerns is how they get along with DeSantis and DeSantis gets along with them, the political push and shove. But I do worry about chipping away, especially at home rule.
Yeah, if I can just on that, all politics are local. So just to share with everyone, the speaker, when you're talking about the legislative session, the speaker, president of the Senate, and the governor are the 3 most powerful folks. That's what governor proposes it, then it's up to the House and Senate to do what they're going to do. We need to remember that the speaker this year is from Miami. Next year, it's from just next door, Clay County, Mr. Garrison. So for the folks listening out there, to Mike Tolbert's concern about, the governor talked about this tax issue, about the property tax issue.
What did he say about it?
He's pushing. He thinks it's a good idea.
Now, is he looking to eliminate property taxes?
Yeah. Coming up with a different approach. Now, it's complicated and all that, but Mike Tolbert is absolutely right. My point in bringing this up is, 2 years, you got 2 sessions. That's if it goes, however they're going to approach it. But if we want to have input, not only the 3 of us, but the people who listen to this or North Florida, a lot of that's going to determine 2 years from now, literally 2 years from now today, when the next speaker is it's Garrison from Orange Park. And we need to be thinking about that and watching to what Mike Tolbert's saying. what is it they're attempting to do, and who's voting for it. And then number two, in 2 years from today, we're going to have one of those three most influential folks for the next 2 years after that. We need to be thinking about that and encouraging people to listen to that.
Okay.
Because home rule, Mike Tolbert is dead ass wrong. I hate to use that expression, but it's more than just chipping away, guys. It's been huge stones taken out of that wall, and it's getting worse. And we're seeing it now on locally when you look at some of the authorities where the governor has appointments. Home rule is being eroded. It's front and center, folks.
Yep.
Mike Tolbert's right.
At both levels, by the way, local and at the state level, from the federal government. Because those are unfunded mandates that unfortunately come down the pike.
Yep.
Thank you all very, very much. And as Mr. Hightower just pointed out, again, our thanks to the Jacksonville History Center for their partnership and sponsorship of our program. Catch us on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube or our own website as well as Facebook. And we'll see you again next week. Thanks for joining us.
Mike's on Mike with Mike Tolbert, Mike Hightower, and Mike Miller can be found on your favorite podcasting platform, Facebook, and YouTube. Visit the website at mikesonmike.com. Join us next time for more conversation with Mike's on Mike.